122 of the October 7th war. We start with an update on fatalities. IDF fatalities since the start of the October 7 massacre have risen to 562. That's up by 1 since our last update. The people of Israel grieve with the family of Sergeant First Class Reserves Shimon Yoshua Asulin, 24, who fell in battle in the southern Gaza Strip. An operational update: the IDF is making intense progress towards the goal of destroying Hamas's military infrastructure in the wake of 10/7. Yesterday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu briefed the government on our progress toward eliminating Hamas. For the completion of that military objective, the Prime Minister explained 3 things must happen. First, the destruction of Hamas's battalions. The IDF has already destroyed 17 of Hamas's 24 battalions, killing 10,000 terrorists, with a similar number wounded and knocked out of action. The IDF is now working to destroy the remainder of Hamas's military machine in the southern Gaza Strip. The IDF is dismantling the Hamas Khan Yunis brigade while taking active steps to shield civilians from harm and thwart the Hamas human shield strategy. To that end, the IDF has operated humanitarian corridors to allow Gazans to escape combat areas, despite Hamas trying to stop them leaving and use them as human shields. And we've already seen around 100,000 Gazans temporarily evacuate from western Khan Yunis alone. The second prerequisite for the elimination of Hamas, the Prime Minister told the government yesterday, is the sustained demilitarization of areas where Hamas has already fallen. That is why the IDF is conducting targeted raids in the north and centre of the Strip to prevent a resurgence of the terror threat. The IDF will need to exercise overarching security control in the foreseeable future because it is the only actor that can prevent Hamas from regrouping and reconstituting its terror army and then attempting to perpetrate the same atrocities as on October 7th. Third, the neutralization of Hamas's underground military infrastructure. We expect this to take some time considering the depth, literally the depth, of the Hamas human shield strategy, positioning its assets under civilian facilities. The tunnels under Khan Yunis alone extend dozens of kilometers long. Over the weekend, the IDF revealed it had destroyed a tunnel shaft containing an underground elevator leading to a Hamas hideout, and that just gives you a sense of the scale of the underground military assets that must still be neutralized. An update on UNRWA. Israel's policy, as the Prime Minister articulated in yesterday's government meeting, is that it is time to begin the process of replacing UNRWA with aid agencies that are not compromised, co-opted, or in cahoots with terrorists. The world must stop relying for aid distribution on UNRWA and draw instead on the rich experience of UN agencies that have already conducted emergency relief in conflict zones. They exist and it's time to use them. To that end, we welcome the confirmation from the United Nations that if UNRWA were defunded, it would be able to scale up humanitarian aid operations in the Gaza Strip at necessary scale. And I refer you to remarks by the spokesman of the World Health Organization, Christian Lindmeier, just last week. He said, and I quote, "I have no doubt that the UN in general and the WHO would be able to scale up whatever needs to be done." An update on the October 7 hostage crisis, with 136 hostages still being abused in the Hamas terror dungeons and denied access to the Red Cross. Addressing yesterday's government meeting, Prime Minister Netanyahu said efforts to free the hostages are continuing at all times, but the government will not agree to any deal and not at any price. An update from the northern border, where Hezbollah continues its aggression since October 7th in flagrant violation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701. Tens of thousands of Israelis are still displaced. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant met last night with senior US presidential advisor Amos Hochstein. He reiterated Israel's desire to resolve this crisis by diplomatic means and underscored Israel's preparedness for other scenarios. IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari briefed the media on Saturday night on Israel's efforts to contain and deter Hezbollah aggression. He laid them out as follows: defensive efforts, beefing up defenses along the border; 2, offensive efforts, engaging in strikes in self-defense to degrade Hezbollah's military capabilities; and 3, stepping up preparedness for a war on the northern border. And I refer you to Rear Admiral Hagari's statement for more on those efforts against Hezbollah. Just an update from the last few minutes. Earlier today, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with soldiers of the 179th Brigade and emphasized that Israel's policy remains total victory over Hamas. The Prime Minister adding that a fatal blow to Iran's axis of evil, which encompasses, of course, Hezbollah in the north and the Houthis in Yemen, is necessary in order to ensure the achievement of future peace accords. The Prime Minister emphasized in his discussion with the soldiers that there is no substitute for the goal of total victory. Israel is not only en route towards achieving that military goal, the Prime Minister emphasized we will not end the war without total victory in order to restore security along both the northern and the southern borders. That's it for today's update. We'll now take your questions as always.
Question from Joel Pollack of Breitbart News. Will the Prime Minister ask US Secretary of State Blinken to use American influence to convince Egypt to agree to Israeli military operations in Rafah? Also, can you provide information on the timing of Blinken's visit, as well as that of Argentinian President Javier Milei?
The Prime Minister said yesterday in his meeting with the government that having already dismantled 17 of the 24 Hamas battalions in the Gaza Strip, our forces will of course turn their attention towards the remainder, including in the south of Gaza. We think it's very important for the whole security architecture of the region that Hamas be totally destroyed inside the Gaza Strip and that Gaza remain permanently demilitarized in order to prevent any resurgence of the terror threat, which would only undermine regional stability and security. Hamas remaining on its feet anywhere in the Gaza Strip and destabilizing regional security is of course not an interest of any of our neighbors.
Question.
If I heard correctly about the president of Argentina, I have no updates on that matter.
Question from Jim Williams of Zenga International News. Has the US and the UK kept the Israeli government updated on their counterattacks against the Iranian proxies in the region?
Israel remains in an ongoing dialogue with our military allies. The Houthi pirate attacks against international shipping are a threat to global security, global trade, and it is correct that the response be accordingly global.
Question from Hannah Julian of the Jewish Press. Israeli banks have frozen the accounts of 2 Israelis who were sanctioned by the US State Department. Spokesperson Matthew Millas has said that the US might consider other actions as well if the White House is not satisfied with the Israeli law enforcement in Judea and Samaria. Does Israel see this as a breach of Israeli sovereignty over its citizens?
The Prime Minister has already responded to this question of our friend and ally President Biden's executive order. The Prime Minister said, and I quote, "The overwhelming majority of residents in Judea and Samaria are law-abiding citizens, many of whom are currently fighting as conscripts and reservists to defend Israel. Israel acts against all Israelis who break the law everywhere. Therefore, exceptional measures are unnecessary." That's the Prime Minister's quote, and he's made no further comment on the matter.
Second question from Hannah Julian of the Jewish Press. Does the Israeli government share Mr. Hochstein's optimism about moving Hezbollah back from the border?
We are realistic about the situation in the north. We are realistic about the failure of international resolutions and diplomatic solutions in the past to prevent Hezbollah's military buildup in southern Lebanon. We definitely hope that it will be possible to achieve a diplomatic resolution. That is why we are pushing now for a diplomatic resolution to this crisis. But we have also been clear that the window for that diplomatic resolution is shrinking, and the situation on the northern border will have to end with a clear change in order to enable the residents of northern Israel to return safely to their homes that are currently being shelled until Hezbollah withdraws its forces from along the Israeli border. As far as we're concerned, that is an imminent threat of a repeat October 7th.
Next question comes from J. Micah Hancock of All Israel News. Is there a proposal on the table towards an agreement with Hezbollah to end the aggression on the northern front?
As I said, the defense minister has met with the US special envoy, Mr. Hochstein, in order to discuss ways that we can prevent an escalation and pursue a diplomatic resolution, which we strongly prefer. The defense minister and Mr. Hochstein discussed the need to change the security situation in the northern arena. That is a shared, declared Israeli-US interest, and ways to safely return Israel's displaced communities to their homes. That's it. Okay, that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much, everyone, and keep safe. Thank you.